All right, welcome back to Green Bay Football Corporation, where today we're going to talk about the Packers and the free agent market that's about to open up. Uh, Today begins the negotiating period, or the legal tampering period as we used to know it, for free agency for the 2024 league year, which opens up on Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. So we can start hearing some news about guys that are in negotiation with the Packers as early as today. But I wanted to go through not only who do we have that's hitting the market from the Packers, but also who might we be actually interested in acquiring during this free agent period. So let's go ahead and start off with our free agents. We have 11 unrestricted free agents, you know, notably AJ Dillon, Josh Nyman, Keyshawn Nixon are some of the bigger names on this list. But you see here also the three safeties that played the most snaps at safety for the Packers this year, and Darnell Savage, Jonathan Owens, and Rudy Ford. Listed Jonathan Ford here from Spot Track. But 11 guys that are going to be hitting the market here. And we've heard a little bit that there's potentially four guys that they're interested in having return. Last week, we talked a little bit about John Runyon Jr. being somebody that they had mutual interest with bringing back. And then yesterday, with the reporting that Devondre Campbell is actually going to be released with a post June 1 designation, essentially meaning that the 10.5 ish million that we're freeing up in cap space from him won't be accessible until June 1st. So we carry all of his money on the books until then. But it gives us like $8 million more in savings for the cap this year this way rather than just cutting him outright right now. But, we got with that news yesterday that Tom Silverstein reported that the Packers are interested in Keyshawn Nixon, Tyler Davis, and then Eric Wilson as possible returns to the team. Wilson, we all know from that great fumble recovery in the playoffs after Nixon had that outstanding return. But Tyler Davis, also a big special teams contributor before he tore his ACL. You're really going back to 2022 when he was a huge contributor there, but played among the most special team snaps that they have there. And also is really the senior guy in that tight end room at this point, amongst other first year guys now. And then Keyshawn Nixon, who is no surprise that we'd be interested in having back, if for no other purpose than the fact that he's a dynamic returner. He was all right in the slot, and some like Peter Bukowski over at Locked On Packers have speculated that maybe he's somebody that could transition to safety and be maybe a little bit more effective there. So interesting to see what they want to do there, but value nonetheless in having Keyshawn Nixon potentially come back. Um, the bigger loss on here to me is Josh Nyman losing that swing tackle. We do not know really what's going to happen with David Bakhtiari yet. So, you know, rumors that he's going to be cut, and then now sounding like, maybe we could have him back on a pay cut. I'm I'm holding out to see whether we end up keeping him or not. I do think there's a greater than 0% chance that he will be on the Packers roster next year, and I hope for his own sake that his health is trending upwards and he's going to be able to be on the field, because whether it's for the Packers or elsewhere, football is better for having a high quality all pro level tackle like that in the game. So but those are our free agents. I actually found it kind of interesting that NFL.com listed all the teams like top three free agent needs, and they had ours listed as defensive tackle, left tackle, and running back, which is really stunning because any Packers fan knows that the biggest free agent need and draft need, I suppose, is safety. I mentioned those three guys. Jonathan Owens actually played the most snaps for the Packers last year at safety with like 927 snaps, then followed by Savage, who played 701, and Rudy Ford, who played 626. The next closest on that list after them is Anthony Johnson Jr., the rookie, who was a convert from cornerback to safety his last year in college, played 334 snaps at safety. So really just losing a ton of experience at that position. So obviously a need there. but national media likes to talk about the big things that they can actually tangibly see. And with all the news around Bakhtiari, they see that as the need. In the reporting generally, Rasheed Walker ended up actually being, slightly below average for the league as far as pressures given up on the amount of snaps that he played. But overall, like I think he's a serviceable level left tackle that they could move forward into the year with. But I do expect them to try to, bring somebody in through the draft because I don't expect any free agent signings along the offensive line really because we just draft and develop well enough there as an organization that I don't think they're going to value the position the way that you spend extra money in free agency to go address it. So for me, like I said, the big need is safety. And here I pulled up NFL.com's top 101 free agents and looking just at the safety position, there's a couple guys that kind of jump out. So obviously, everybody knows by this point, Xavier McKinney is probably the preferred target in the safety market. They've got him listed number 2 below Chauncey Gardner Johnson, who, you know, missed a bit last year due to injury, but then was outstanding in Philadelphia the year before. So interesting name there as well. Would be nice and often happens really that the Packers snipe somebody from a division foe within the NFC North, and he did play for Detroit last year. Cameron Curl's another name that's been coming up a little bit for the Packers as well, and then Justin Simmons being the next big one that we hear a little bit of buzz about, but that's because he was a cut. So in reality, we could sign him outright at any point now before the league year even starts, similar to how the Bears did with Kevin Byard, who was of the Eagles last year and then formerly the Tennessee Titans. And Simmons played, Pro Bowl level the last several years, kind of from his numbers in PFF is trending slightly downward overall over the last couple of years. But safety is one of those positions that age isn't necessarily a huge critical factor to me because I mean, back in the day, you used to see guys that were primarily corners early in their career. As they start to physically lose a step a little bit, they still have that mind, the instincts, and the IQ to play at a safety position and be an impactful player. So seeing that Justin Simmons is maybe regressing a little bit physically, he can still be, an effective safety on the back end. And I mean, he might be somebody that we look at targeting as a more of a veteran presence for that back end. Jordan Fuller is another name that we've heard a bit about coming out of the Rams there, and a lot of people clamored for Geno Stone as well. But the one that I want to kind of focus on here is number 10 here, Alohi Gilman. So underrated kind of guy. Got to start this past season. Actually performed pretty well. But the reason I want to highlight him, he is only 26 years old, so that meets kind of what I expect the Packs are going to be looking for in at least one of their safety acquisitions through free agency, if they potentially make two. They want to go young and kind of match the youth and the timeline that this window that we're kind of starting to open in Green Bay to go attack a Super Bowl is. But he also played for um, our defensive pass game coordinator, Derek Ansley, in Los Angeles with the Chargers last year. So having a little bit of a connection with a player like that, maybe he liked the way he played. Maybe he thinks there's more that they can kind of develop or unwrap there from Gilman. So potentially somebody to look at as a target for the Packers. The other position that I think we really need to look at is the linebacker position. Obviously, we just talked about the fact that Devondre Campbell was released or will be released. So that's really just leaves two guys at the linebacker position on or under contract for 2024, and that's Quay Walker and Isaiah McDuffie. And this new scheme, we're going to need more actual bodies to be able to like rotate in there because we're going to have more of them on the field, at least, potentially in some of the base situations. Probably going to still end up having two linebackers on the field while we're in nickel a lot of the time, but still, for those spots where we're in a more base defense and we have three, off ball linebackers, you're going to need that third guy to be able to go. So looking at the free agent market, I'm not particularly impressed. And I don't think that we're going to have a big splash signing here because some of these guys at the top are either boom or bust or are going to demand too much money that I don't think the Packers are going to go for it. And Patrick Queen was one of the guys that was kind of at the top of that list that might be intriguing, but he's a little bit more of that boomer bust type. Had a new scheme in Baltimore the last couple of years and added Roquan Smith next to him that probably helps elevate his game a little bit because he's asked to do a little bit less. He can play a little bit faster. I assume Roquan Smith took some of those communication duties kind of off of his plate as well. I don't know if that's somebody that I necessarily like for the Packers to sign, but Jordan Brooks is another guy that is probably going to command more money than the Packers want to spend. And then you see some of the guys down here, Devin White, potentially depends on where the market kind of falls on him. And then it starts to deteriorate a little bit. And another one that I kind of want to look at is Tyrell Dodson. So kind of got thrust into action due to injury in Buffalo, but ended up acquitting himself pretty well as a linebacker. And the fact that he's not their preferred starter and he's letting hit the market might be somebody that, we could get on the cheap and would be a potential good quality ad. And then there's two other guys that I think might be, potentially of interest for the Packers here. And that would be Kenneth Murray, who also played for Derek Ansley in LA. But then also the one that I think I'm a little bit more interested in is Jerome Baker, who played for Anthony Campanelli, who is now the linebackers coach for us. So an outside linebacker for the Dolphins that played directly for one of our coaches on this staff could potentially be another target in free agency on that level. And then a few other positions that might be of interest. Obviously, NFL.com talked about running back being a position of need, and I do think that's some place that we could potentially look. But I mean, some names that I've heard tossed around that either Packers fans or people are interested in would be like Antonio Gibson from Washington. A little bit more of a shifty, elusive scat back type guy could be potentially interesting, and then also. J.K. Dobbins, who's got a little bit of a injury history with Baltimore there, but when he can stay healthy is, a valuable addition to an offense. But I do think I'm expecting really if the Packers are active, it's going to be in that safety market, which is almost a given at this point. And then linebacker would be the two. I don't think we're gonna stretch anywhere else. There's not a ton of holes that need to be filled on this team, and I think with the cap situation being what it is, I think they're going to opt to try to add that talent through the draft and save a little bit of money on the back end. But let me know who you guys want to see the Packers add in free agency, if there's anybody in particular, or if there's a position that you actually think the Packers are really going to go into. Leave a comment below, and I'll see you in the next video, which I'm going to talk about free agency for the rest of the NFC North and what it looks like for them. There's a lot of guys on all three of our competitors here that are set to hit the market. And, with news today that Kirk Cousins is going to test free agency, that really leaves a big hole for the Minnesota Vikings there. So make sure to check that video out. That should be out tomorrow, and I'll see you later.